Hello and welcome back to the episode 4,322 for the worst reselling podcast ever. And hello, Granny, how are you? We're a bit beat today.
We are. Look, it's a little bit hard. It's daylight savings, which I didn't realise until you told me, and I wonder why I was still tired this morning. Haven't had enough sleep.
And plus,
Dragged
we've had the
myself out of
extra.
bed to do this, yes.
I was about to say, we've also had the added pleasure of being kicked off StreamYard because we refused to submit to their world domination aspirations. Because how dare someone else have one of those except for me? So we've moved over to. I don't know if you pronounce it EveMax or EveMux or EVMux, so I'm not too sure. It's another streaming software. I'm quite impressed with it.
I would have said EvMux, but that's just me.
EvMux, yeah, maybe that's how it pronounced it is. But if you do know how to pronounce it, or if you are from EvMux or however you pronounce it, put it in the comment section below with a bit of a pronunciation on it, because I'm actually quite surprised and quite impressed with the amount of features this program has. We've had to slide a little bit because I had to upgrade the program, because otherwise the podcast would have been a lot of segments of 7 minutes each. So if you are, I was about to say, because I was watching Soda City Flips' live earlier in the week just to see how the program went before I committed to it. Because I think he capped out at 30 minutes. So if you are looking to use it as a live streaming platform, probably best to jump on the basic plan at $25 US a month straight off the bat. But that's enough for plugging them. How are you, Granny? How has your week been?
Oh, yes, well, hectic as usual. I've been... Yes, pushing, trying to get more stuff listed on eBay. I'm back on my world domination plan of trying to get down into the top 10 as a jeans reseller in the women's section. I finally got under 100 in the top 100. So yes, I've been pushing.
Is that still a thing? The quality listing report, is that something we all aspire to be? Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I think personally, and this might be just me being on some sort of octopus spectrum, I'm not too sure, but I really don't care about the quality listing report, actually, because as far as I'm aware, that doesn't really transcribe into sales. So so I'd rather look at my Flipwise data, which I do have down here. And this is another feature of this is another feature for all those people that did reach out. I had one of the guys reach out. I think it was Macapaka that reached out, said that the data wasn't clear enough last week because we were using StreamYard. But this program actually lets me bring it up for the full screen, so hopefully you can see a little bit better there. But so I will be releasing this on Sunday because the podcast comes out on Tuesday. So as we sit at Sunday, I'm just $1 short of doing $1,000 profit in the last week. So that's from Sunday to Sunday or Monday to Sunday. I'm not too sure what I've got the data, but I'll go into it a bit later as well. So that is one of the things. So like I said, I'm not too concerned. I don't heavily watch the quality listing report anymore.
I find it useful for a couple of things. I find it useful, especially for beginners, to know, how many photos they need to do in a particular category. Well, not what they have to do, but what other people are doing, so that they know what they should be doing. I think for those, a lot of the things where it's helpful is in those sections, so that people know what to do in keywords and photos and all those other things that people are doing in their category. How many people are doing free shipping? How many people aren't? Returns and all those sorts of things. That's number one. But I find it useful for myself as a bit of a goal setting thing, So I'll give myself a goal in a particular category and say, all right, well, I'm at number such and such now, so I want to aspire to be this number. And at the moment, it's to get into the top 10 in women's jeans.
Yeah, well, I just brought you up just to to feed your ego a little bit bigger, but
absolutely.
Yeah, I think you probably segued into what I wanted to talk about this episode. I know we spoke a little bit last night when you decided to tell me that I needed to sign up for this program because I haven't even taken my power pills. I meant to take my power pills today because I'm not allowed to take them on the weekend, but I haven't taken them today. But what I wanted to talk about today is that I was watching another podcast through the week. I think I watched it about 4 or 5 times. I went through a gamut of emotions when watching it. I was quite impressed, then I was pissed off, and all these different things, right? But then I think after my 16th view on that podcast, I came to a realization, and you've just pretty much said something then that I probably want to pull you up on it for a second then, is that I think a lot of people in the YouTube space and a lot of people in the eBay space don't realize there's different niches of audience. So what you said then is the quality listening report's more geared towards beginners. I would argue that it's actually geared towards more intermediate or advanced sellers, right? In the sense of saying, hey, look, list look at the people on Facebook, right? And,
yes.
A podcast last week. I'm not going to mention who it was. I don't know if they were. I resonated with a lot of the things that they said. So I was originally a little bit peeved. But then I suppose it's like that 5 stages of grief. Or I got over it pretty quickly on my 8th view of the podcast. But
you did not. You were still going later in the week.
I think
rewatch, weren't you?
What's right? Yeah. So I was basically, and what it comes down to, right, is that, and I think I had an epiphany last night when I was, laying in bed at 3 o'clock this morning, seething about the podcast as well. That realistically, we try and cater towards, I suppose, people that are not so much. Well, me personally, we're not so much in the beginner phase because that's pretty much a Facebook cesspit from my perspective. But we also cater towards those people moving out of the beginner probably to the intermediate stage.
Yes.
I'm not going to say that I'm pretty much focused at the advanced people because the advanced people probably would wipe the floor with me, right? So I'm not going to say, hey, look, I list 100 things a day and I make X amount of profit, all these different things. I kind of think there's little niches in YouTube for everyone. Like with Tori, for example, he basically goes out and shows people that are very, very beginning their journey, or they're quite new to the eBay space, what to look for, right? Where I would go, hey, I would never pick up the stuff he picks up because it's very low cost. But that doesn't necessarily mean he's wrong, or doesn't mean he's steering people down the garden path. It's a different market, right? So I think that's what the realization I came to with the podcast that I was watching last week is that there's kind of it's not a competition mentality. I'm not too sure what it is, but it's kind of it's a realization that we're not competing against each other. For the simple fact is that we're in different journeys. What they're probably the one that would pick up from us, right? So in the sense that also we would float with that late beginner to intermediate person, they would probably take the next step in the sense of someone that's moving from intermediate to advanced and all those different things. Like I've said before, I have a strong admiration for these people that do the podcast, all 19 of them. However, there is a bit of a bone of contention, and I did try to reach out to them through the week. However, found out that I was blocked, so it's kind of one of those things.
Oh well, that I think that sort of comes from our past. What is it? What do you call it when you do something wrong? Our past history of perhaps speaking out, which we do. Because I mean, look, if you've got a problem with someone, so contact them and let them know, or get on a YouTube and produce a episode about them and tell them what the problems are and see how you go from there.
Yeah, and I think I've moved beyond that because I've had my 15-minute epiphany, and I'll probably be changing my mind towards later in the episode. Is that and I think one of the things that they brought up with basically, I can't remember the wording, but it was something along the lines of bullying or something along the lines of taking the piss out of people and all those different things. The people that I normally and make fun of and all these different things, I speak to on a very regular basis, right? And we do have that kind of relationship that we do all these different things. If I don't know that person, I won't talk about them. So, there's a lot of people that I kind of, bang my soft, foamy head against the wall, but I don't know them and I don't care enough to talk about them. So, you kind of from that perspective is that you really, really, really need to, I suppose, look at it from different perspectives, right? So I did reach out to these 19 people on this podcast to say, hey, look, this is what we are. I'd love to have a chat and all these different things. It may have not have been about me, right? But I got a sneaking suspicion that it was. But
there's probably a fairly high possibility that might have been, talking about you. Yeah,
that's right. So it might be my overly inflated ego that thinking it might have been me. But like I said, that I tried to reach out to them just to to give some, I suppose, some background as to misconceptions that they may have, all these different things. But like I said, I tried, and the door's always open. So I suppose that the biggest thing that I would say, depending on what your end game is for YouTube, this is regardless of anyone, right? Never be afraid to call people out for their bad behavior. As long as you've got evidence or you've basically all these different things, me mucking around or me tearing strips off people is two different things, right? So by all means, like I said before, if I've said something wrong or Granny said something wrong, especially in this forum, call us out. Reach out to us directly on Instagram, or call us out in the comments like Peachy and Graham do on a regular basis.
Yeah, well, absolutely they do, yes. But that's our thing. Like people know that we're going to be straight up, and we do, as you say, we do have a relationship with those people that we are normally having a shot at anyway. But we don't hide around and fluff. We don't fluff. There's no fluff in here.
And I suppose that's probably, I want to move on from that in the sense of saying, hey, look, find, and we've said numerous times before, ingest a lot of content that don't just go to the one person or go to all these different things. Like I said, I watch a lot of content.
Just watch my videos and that's it.
You're probably one that I don't watch. But the thing is, realistically, it comes down to just ingesting all that content, getting different perspectives and getting different things and taking away the good points from that person. This doesn't necessarily mean that they're negative or otherwise. Who cares? You might watch a certain person and go, hey, look, they do this right. I watched a YouTuber in the States yesterday and, he was fantastic in front of the camera. He was quite, charismatic and all these different things. But, oh, my God, his business was in shambles. I'll just keep shaking my head listening to it. But I'm not going to mention him by name because, it's not my business or I've never spoken to this person. So, but like I was saying, is that these are the things that, and I've said numerous times before, is people jump on YouTube first before they actually ever sell on eBay. So that they're basically telling people how to run a business without running the business themselves. So.
Yeah. And I do seem to think too, and hello to all our friends in the States, and I hope everyone in North Carolina is okay and safe and doing well, and that you've got power back on. Yep, sorry to hear about all that. But I do think in the US in particular, there's sort of that, it's almost a done deal that if you're going to be selling on eBay, you also become a YouTuber so that you can, that's how they sort of split their income a little bit doing it that way, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think like watching I can't remember his name, but they got to sell them all from Victoria. His videos are going gangbusters, and all he does is basically does picking videos like very similar to Colin Picker, and he's getting a pretty good name for himself in the community. So if you are looking at implementing YouTube into your space, probably just start at that pickings perspective. Don't start talking about business advice and all these different things, especially. Regardless, even now, I think it's a little bit of an imposter syndrome for myself. Is there's a lot of things that I've done a lot of courses. I've been to uni and all these different things and studied business, and I'm still cautious on what I say because I don't want people to misinterpret it or do all these different things. And like I said, on the flip side is people don't listen anyway.
Yes, and on the other end of the scale is moi, who's over 60 and haven't got a single qualification to my name.
But that's what I'm saying is that you don't need a qualification, and don't take it as being an egotistical thing. It's that realistically, I think where I get a lot of my knowledge from is ingesting a lot of content, right? So I listen to everyone, regardless if I like them, or not. And I don't berate them. I don't leave negative comments. And speaking of which, I've got a troll as well. They're not a very good troll, but they're trying. They're obsessed with me being in the army for some reason. But hey, look. But I was a bit snarky with them at the start, but I kind of realized to myself, maybe they've got something, like a disability or something along the lines of that. So I'm just treating them like that. I'm just being polite to them and all these different things. So I could easily block them or ban them, but I'll see how that pans out.
I want to show this little interesting article that I found, this little item that I found in my death pile yesterday, and absolutely, I was just in my death pile getting some books to put in some variation listings. And I found this.
The Hour of the Octopus.
Yes. And I do believe, and I'm going to be doing a little bit of a video on this later today, because I actually do believe that this is come from you and that this is your basis for your world domination plans. Is it not?
Well, that's exactly right. Well, I would
call you hide this in my death pile?
I was about to say I'd probably call it 24 hours of the octopus, but I suppose we need to start somewhere, don't we? Like 1 hour of the octopus.
Yeah. Well, apparently, it's all going to start with the Panama. Well, no, maybe it's going to end with the Panama Canal. Don't know, but anyway.
So I tried to end it with a pandemic, but that didn't go too well. But I suppose that's enough. I suppose I want to move on from that topic in the sense of saying, hey, look, if you do have a problem with us, like me personally, I can't speak for Leanne, but by all means, reach out to me. Like, I'm not a sociopathic or a psychotic. You're not going to end up in the middle of a ditch on the side of the road, which a lot of people assume for some reason.
He's actually quite approachable, unlike what he appears to be. Mm.
Well, that's right. Well, probably for the best part, like, and to toot my own horn for this, that I spent probably the best part of Wednesday or Thursday helping out one of our viewers about Skylanders. I could have easily just told him to piss off or ghosted him like someone else did to Tori. But I thought, well, I might as well put my money where my mouth is, in the sense of saying, hey, look, I've told people to reach out with me, and because we couldn't come to a deal with because he wanted to buy these Skylanders. And I said, look, hey, we're too far apart. However, this is what you should do. This is what you should do from this perspective. So it was great. It was fantastic. He did what I asked him to do, which, find a Skylander lot, reach out to me. But we couldn't come to a deal. But I think I have been seeing on his Instagram feed that he has been selling them, which is quite good.
Oh, that's good.
It's not one of the Skylander themes that I kind of delve into. So it's not too bad from my perspective. But like I said, that I think and that's another difference between our podcast and I know. So I'm just going to stop talking about it now. But and other people's podcasts.
The fact that every podcast episode of ours, we have to talk about Skylanders and nobody else talks about them ever.
No, that's right, because obviously they're not. Give it 12 months, Leanne, when the Skylanders take over the world. You'll hear it here first. But like I said, that I think from our podcast is like from where we sit in the I suppose the reselling space spectrum. I'm more inclined to help people, right? That's right. I'm more inclined to help people in the sense of saying, hey, look, from that beginning to that intermediate phase with niches, I know all these different things. Where, the other podcast that I suppose I was alluding to is that they're more on the advanced side. So you shouldn't be there if you don't really know what you're talking about, if that makes a lot of sense. Like if you are asking those questions, and by all means, don't stop asking those questions. But you really, like I said, you really need to play to your audience and all those different things. So that's a bit of an epiphany I had last night. It's in the sense of saying, hey, look, I was originally a little bit peeved in senses that, it's only my ego, right? They mightn't have been speaking about me at all, but it's something, like I said, it's just a bit of an epiphany from that perspective. But what I want to move on to is Q4.
I must have to say, before we do finish on that subject, because you do make me laugh, because when you find a podcast, and especially ones that you just think are either bad or, not perhaps doing the right thing, you keep going back. I just don't watch them ever again.
It's not.
Can't help yourself.
It's not so much like for me to laugh at them and me to and let's be honest, right? I can say this, and I have said this in a group chat that I'm in before, is that I can say things because I'm guilty of doing the same thing, right? So I can't, this thing, and the best of times I can't talk at all anyway, and I'm tripping up my words now, but I don't watch them for train crash TV kind of thing. I don't watch them to make fun of them or to basically compare all these different things. I'm actually quite interested, and I've said this numerous times before, the small channels are the ones you probably want to be watching because they're probably closer aligned to humanity. They haven't got their ego and they haven't floated off into space, and how fantastic they are and selling all these little merch products. And speaking of which, we will be doing another merch drop today. So I will, if you watch my video on Sunday, there will be a code word in that, and put the code word in the comments for the podcast, and you go into the draw to win one of the merch packs. And Grumpy Granny and I will be talking a bit later this afternoon regarding, because we did put a thing out there saying, hey, look, let us know of a song you want us to rework for the Tentacles of Ambition. So I'll ask Granny which suggestion she thinks the best, and there's only like 2 or 3, so you've got a pretty good chance of winning. Whoever she chooses, I'll send an information pack to, and we'll put it on Instagram, all those different things. But we're moving into Q4 now, Granny. Did you say you're ramping up listings and stuff along those?
Yes, definitely ramping up listings. And also, look, let's just say, I've talked about my death file before, but like I've sort of gone and made sure I've gotten things that are going to be suitable for Christmas gifts and things, and I'm getting them up early. So this little number, which, I think Ben 10 has quite a cult following and does sell quite well, like this is a DVD game. It's new. The box has been opened, but the stuff inside's sealed. And this has been under my photo table for 2 Christmases in a row that I've been going to list it and left it too late. But I've done it. I listed it yesterday. Yay!
How much does it go for?
About $40. Well, there's been some that have sold a bit more, but because I have put the price down a little bit because the box has been open. Even though the stuff inside's sealed, I did. Besides, I want to sell it quickly.
Yeah, I was about to say, Adam, if you're listening, I would use the keywords new/open box for that one. So you would sell it because people will gravitate to that. So if you haven't got that in your keywords, let Leanne put that in there. But yeah, so I've been listing. I've been trying to keep under 1,000 listings. What I said before is because that's when the next click over for the Flipwise happens, where it jumps up another $10. And what I've been doing is I'm in the process of consolidating my manga into variation listings. And I know we've spoken about variation listings before, and I know variation listings are a hot topic in your Discord because I went through and caught up the last 3 weeks in the Discord yesterday, the different areas. Like I said, that because the variation, and I know a few people use Flipwise, and that's what I'll talk about it quickly, is that variation listings, regardless if you've got 1 or 1,000 products in that counts towards one listing. So I think the cheapest rate for Flipwise is 25 or 250 or something along to that. If you had 25 or 250 variation listings with your stock, you're pretty much laughing. You're getting it close to nothing from that data perspective. So, but like I said, I'm in the process
I've actually been getting some messages from Better Than Kay. And because she's started on the variation thing, and she's actually been sending me some lovely messages and said she was binging on my on the Discord recordings the other day, and she said super helpful, seriously, and then she said seriously, you are the best book YouTuber I've come across. How's that?
Oh, geez. She lies as well. I normally just get threats that involve like this.
Anyway, yeah, well, she did send me a message later on to because she'd done a couple of variation listings, and then a couple of days later sold 7 books out of one of them. So she was wrapped.
And that's something that I want to talk about, the variation listings, right? Because I think a lot of people, I haven't watched Grumpy Granny's videos closely enough to see if she actually says this, because I normally just have it as background noise, right? This is for everyone, not just Grumpy Granny. So before everyone grabs their torches and pitchforks and all these different things, variation listings take a little bit. I would say a week or a week and a half to really germinate within eBay. Because
I would have said 2 weeks to 3.
Yeah. So
when you first start.
That's right. So
you've already got some variations up. I think when you put your very first variation listing up, and I even had that same experience, it does take at least 2 to 3 weeks before you start getting any traction. But once you actually have, the more variation listings you put up, you seem to get that quicker traction all the time.
Well, that's right. So I don't have any on me at the moment, but I've been, Leanne and I spoke about this numerous times, and I think we spoke about the podcast before as well. As I picked up a box and box of Star Wars books, right, from like vintage from the late 80s, the early 90s. I put them in a variation listing. It took about a week and a half to 2 weeks to get the first sale, and I've had about 10 or 15 sales off that variation listing since then. So, but like Leanne is right in the sense that I don't have any quantifiable data to say that because I don't already have established variation listings, regardless if they're in the same category or otherwise, that may create eBay to love you a little bit quicker, but I'm not too sure. But generally, don't create a variation listing. Don't create a variation listing thinking that you're going to get sales straight up, because before we even went on the podcast, I was whinging about my Flipwise data because my average was, I think it was about $43 last week. It's gone down to $30 because, and not just because, but because before we went live, someone bought 18 Skylanders, which goes anywhere between like $1.99 to $15, $20, $30, or depending on the character they want. Right, this is a variation listing perspective. So a variation listing counts those individual listings as a listing sale, right? So if one Skylander sold for $1.99, but I sold something for $400 in the last week, that averages out from that perspective. It doesn't exclude that outline data, but that's, like I'm saying, is a little bit because it was a little bit healthier.
Yeah, overall, I think since I've started doing the variations, my ASP's dropped from around $43 down to about, I think I'm down to about 25 now. But look, on the plus side, I'm selling that stuff and selling that more frequently. Like pretty much most days, I'm selling something out of my variation listings. So hey, That being said, I did two new ones yesterday.
Yeah.
I did a Ben 10 one because I got all my Ben 10 books listed as well. And and another one. So,
I know we're going to get off the bandwagon for variation listings in a second, but what I find is that you need quantifiable data, quantifiable products that you can restock. Don't make a variation listing off the back. You might have the full series of Ben 10 books, all right? So the likelihood of you coming across those Ben 10 books again, it might make it worthwhile. But you can repurpose that variation listing into something else. So if you sell your Ben 10 books, then all of a sudden you're down to your last one. Get rid of the last one, rename that listing to Charlene Harris Sookie Stackhouse books or something like that. So what happens then? It tricks eBay into thinking that variation listing sold 30, 40, 50 items, and then gives you that competitive edge from that perspective. And that's something that I haven't spoken about previously, and that's probably something that Leanne hasn't spoken about previously either. It's a little trick for the podcast viewers, but always, even if you have multi-quantity items, if, for example, if I can bring in WD-40, I don't know why I chose that, but something like that. So I can source that, but then all of a sudden I run out of my WD-40 contact, but then I can move on to orange oil, this stuff from here. What I would do is I wouldn't cancel it wouldn't end that WD-40 listing. Just repurposes the orange oil listing. Then you've basically got the sales data to say 80, 90, 30, 300 units sold, and people will go, oh, this, you see it all the time in the Lego space, right? And this is something I'm going to talk about today, a bit of Lego reselling as well. But like I said, just repurpose those listings because the algorithms favors them, especially what we're talking about before with variation listings. List it and move on to a different series or something like that. So
yes, well, my Ben 10 books are like superhero. I think it's called Superhero Collection or something. So that my immediate thought was, I will actually just leave that as that because the Ben 10 is going to attract people for a start, and then once a few of those books are gone, then it's going to become the superhero.
But I think, well, that's exactly right. So what I would do for variation listings, if you wanted one little bit of information to write in your notepad and take away to get ready for Q4, look at Goosebumps, look at Animorphs, look at the Choose Your Own Adventure books and all these different things. I come across them so often at the op shops and the thrift stores and all these different things. They're made for variation listings because of how frequent they come up in the wild, right? But like Leanne was saying, then once she gets rid of her Ben 10 books, she'll move it on to superheroes. Just generic, and Ben 10 can still sit under that one. Then you can bring Marvel, you can bring DC, and all these different things. Like you would just use keywords in the listing because when people search for Ben 10, superhero book 1. Regardless if your title's called book one or Ben 10 Superhero Book 1, it might be just under the banner of superhero books or something along to that. But because you've got a variation listing called Ben 10 Superheroes Book 1, that listing will come up because it's in one of those selectable options and it's available option in that variation listing. So be very, very, very mindful that that's how you can pretty much get around things. So just repurpose even your single-use items. So, if you have had a multi-quantity sale listing, like a replenishable, you can't get that anymore. Don't end that listing. Just basically clear all the data out of it and move it into the new listing. So much easier. And you will go a lot better.
And it works very well. I found it works very well, particularly if you've got a particular author that you've made a variation on. For me, with books, and you're getting very low on those books. Well, that's okay. Like, so for example, if it's a crime author, well, then just turn it into a crime mystery.
That's right.
Variation and add some other authors in, so you're not losing that data, but you're at the start you're getting that attraction for that particular author.
And that's right. And you can actually, I think one of the item specifics from memory is actually author for the Star Wars books, right? So I didn't include the authors because I didn't particularly care, because people would probably look for Han Solo's Legacy Book 1 and Book 2 or trilogy, whatever it is from that perspective, right? So I'm not too concerned because the authors are really no one in the grand scheme of things.
They're probably not none. Whereas for me, when I do say, if I do a crime mystery thriller variation, I actually add in each author, or as many as I can.
That's right. Well, that's right, because
if you're going to come up.
Well, that's right, because they might be looking for Kathy Reich's books or something, for example, like that. But with half of these books are written by people under a pseudonym or all these different things. So I didn't really particularly care from that perspective. But just going quickly back to the variation listings and the recycling of single use listings and all these different things, I probably wouldn't recommend it for clothing items because if you're selling a used pair of jeans and you've got, just say if it's a pair of Levi's, then all of a sudden you've got one available, 43 sold, people are going to think in the opposite direction, right? It's like, what's wrong with these pair of jeans if they've come back 43 times? So look at it from that perspective. So if you're selling video games, it's fine. If you're selling books, it's fine. If you're selling brand new clothes with tags, that's fine.
Yes.
That's new tags. There's no issues there because you basically have multiple items. But if you're only selling one-off pairs of jeans or one-off jumpers that you find in the thrift store and the op shop, probably wouldn't use a recycled listing for that because it might just give people pause to say, hey, well, what's going on here kind of thing. So
talking of clothing items, and I am saying it now out loud, I am never ever, no matter what it is, I am not buying any more black knitted pure new wool jumpers or cardigans ever.
What's that? Holes?
Well, I got stung again this week, didn't I? Well, look, it only cost me $2, and it was a beautiful, brand new merino wool, pure new wool cardigan, black, and looked fine in the shop. And then got home, go to take the photos of it. It's got little holes in the front.
Yeah, that's something that used to trip me up as a clothing seller as well. Is that I would get so excited about seeing a brand. Then it would be fake by the time I get home because you actually, like I said, but I think last week or the week before we did the podcast, is that you get excited and get that adrenaline rush or that dopamine hit where you think, oh God, I haven't seen this before. Then you get it home, and then you realize, oh, it's fake or it's got holes in it, and like jeans and stuff like that. The amount of holes, the back of the pockets and all these different things. So just I don't know. Like I said, there's too many with DVDs, for example. If you're selling DVDs. If you look at the case looks fine. You look at the disc, there's a good chance if it's got no scratches on it, it's fine. That's really the only things you need to look at, right? With clothes, you got to pick it up, look at the right lighting, and change the different angles. And jeans used to do me in because they used to be hemmed. I'd never bring a tape measure. I'd never bring a tape measure with me to the thrift store, so I used to line them against my tentacles just to see tentacles granny, get one out of the gutter. To see, especially if they were 34 or 36 or whatever, or from that perspective, just to see what the length was. Then I'd get home to measure them, then they're 28.
Yeah. I mean, I don't ever measure them in the shop, but I do check the stitching out. Being a sewer myself, I can sort of I can tell whether they've been sewn by hand or whether, not by hand, but whether they've been sewn at home or whether they've been done in the factory. So, yeah.
Well, I found that a lot of the pairs that I found, that I'm not too sure if, Levi stockists. I know back when I was a kid that you could buy pairs of jeans from certain stores, and they would actually have a seamstress or a sewer in the store that would have that stitching, the same stitch, right? So it wasn't so much a light brown stitching down the sides.
It's always a little bit different.
You got it white, but that's what I'm saying. It's something that I really, even though I picked up thousands and thousands and thousands of jeans, I'm kind of thinking to myself, how did I miss? Some are blatantly obvious. It looked like I've sewn the bloody thing, but others are so well done. And you kind of think, geez.
The light.
Must have been telling me something. No, okay. Couldn't work out what was going on.
I'm heading towards the light. The light.
Yes, that's right. Well, please do. Well, not yet. So I've just paid for the month of this program, so don't get to the light yet.
You need to get value out of it, yeah.
Well, that's right. That's exactly right. But it's a lot. I'm quite impressed. Once I get my head around all the features and all these different things, because we can use music, and Shane Soda City Flips did use it all on his earlier in the week. I know you've been using OBS. I've tried to use OBS in the past, and if I was streaming, like you said, like video games or Twitch streaming and stuff like that, I probably would use OBS because it's probably less power intensive. But I really, it was too clunky for me. I don't like setting it up. I'd rather just a ready-made product.
Yeah. Look, I think for me, someone did ask me during the week, were you going to use OBS too? And I said, I doubt it very much. But I mean, the OBS for me, I think it's going to be great because I've taken the time to sort of learn it, deep dive as I usually do, and get it all set up. And it's going to be really good for me, particularly when I start doing more of my history stories and other things that I've got planned coming up in the future. That, for doing the presentation on the screen of other things, it'll be fantastic.
That's right. Because I really, and I think I've said numerous times, I'm the octopus for the path of least resistance, right? If I can make a program that I can pay, $5-10 a month, whatever it is, $20 a month, I don't care. That does it for me, and I don't have to, dick around for the 30 minutes before setting it all up and all these different things. I'm just going to go down that path. I see a value proposition from that perspective.
Yeah. And look, I certainly don't mind paying for this EVMAX, whatever it is, but I wanted to make sure it was going to, that someone else that's already paid for it, like you, was happy with it before I do.
It seems to.
It looks like I'm going to, have it keep going with the ABS. We'll see.
Well, do let us know in the comment section below if you do like the little borders around the side. I know there's little idiosyncrasies that probably will need to be ironed out from my perspective, but I do like the sense that I can bring you up full screen, bring me out full screen, all my beauty, more glory. And like I said, and also the when we actually add something to the stuff, it takes us out of the equation and makes it a lot clearer so people can actually read it. So that's going to make it helpful later on. So, but anyway, I think that's it for me for another week, Rennie. We'll watch. We'll watch a upcoming podcast in probably the next week or two and see if there's retaliations and mortar's been thrown against us.
I did see a new one yesterday too, and one of the person's names leads me to believe they might be resellers. I'm not sure, so I'm going to check that out today, and I'll let you know. Yes, and I'll have a new kids book hopefully coming out later today if I get it finished.
Oh, cool. Yeah. So if you have got this far, please put in the comment section below any reselling podcast that you'd like to publicize. I'll be quite curious to see what's out there, because I've pretty much, I listened to the Trash to Cash, I listened to Reseller Clickbait podcast, I listened to, obviously not ours, but Business and Banter, the Used Book Guy. I'm not too sure what there's two of those guys that do that one. And that's pretty much the only ones I know about. Oh, sorry, the Caleb and Josh, I watched their ones as well. So there's a few there's a few that I watch. There's a few that I watch that I can't think of their names, but I like the background noise, and I just it's more of a communication piece, and if people take that away, so be it. So that's fantastic. But anyway,
I think too, if you pick up just that one little tip out of each thing, like bonus.
That's right. But anyway, we'll call.
Don't think you'll be picking up any tips off us today, but anyway.
Hey, we did tell them about variation listings.
Oh, we did.
But anyway, we'll I'd new to go and see what this program does. It spits at the end and see what happens there. But anyway, we'll catch you next week. Bye. Oh, we're still here, Granny. I don't know how to